This is episode number 252 with last year's PleinAir Salon winner and artist extraordinaire, Jennifer McChristian.
This is the PleinAir Podcast with Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of PleinAir magazine. In the PleinAir Podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called plein air, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plein air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Eric Rhodes.
Hey there, and welcome to the PleinAir Podcast. I'm Eric, and our goal for this podcast and all podcasts is to help inspire you to paint outdoors, because I think painting outdoors will actually make you a better painter because you're seeing nature. You're not looking at photographs which lie. Plus, the plein air lifestyle is just so cool. I mean, you make lots of friends to paint with, you get to travel, you get to be outdoors, you're going to be creative. So if you're just listening, I heard from some people the other day, actually met them on the lake, and they said, hey, we didn't know you had a podcast. We've been listening to it. Now we got to get them painting, right? Get them to try painting. This is your chance to get into the mind of the artist, and our artist today is going to be Jennifer McChristian. You're going to learn more about her in a minute. Learn about her struggles and journey and techniques, and that's going to be helpful to you. I am so grateful to you. This show would not have the success it has. Literally millions of downloads, positive reviews and comments happening because of you. So thank you very much. We appreciate you sharing it and reviewing it and giving us those 5 stars. It always helps. At the end of the podcast, we will do the Art Marketing Minute to help you sell more art. If you're interested in becoming a business person with your art, this is the place to start. That and some of my other things like artmarketing.com and my book and so on. Today, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of donating paintings to charities, and also what you should focus on. Should you be focusing on multiple topics, subjects? We'll get into that a little bit. I am coming to you from the Adirondack Mountains. I'm back. I was at Pastel Live last week, and man, are my arms tired. Nice to be back in the Adirondacks where it's cool instead of Austin, Texas, where it was 106 degrees. Tough. That's tough. Anyway, I've been painting a little bit before I got back, and then not before I got back, before I left, and I'm going to get out painting again here pretty quickly. So I'll be posting pictures on social media. Follow me at Eric Rhodes on Instagram, X, Facebook, Threads, you name it. We're there. LinkedIn. Also, thanks again to FeedSpot for making us the #1 art podcast in the world 2 years in a row. In the world, can you believe that? As a result of the attention they're giving us, we're seeing more and more people plein air painting, and that's spreading across the world. And if you want to be plein air painting in your community and you want to find other people, start searching, because we want to get communities together, get people painting together. Somebody reached out to me. They said, I'm in Spain, and I put them in touch with some people in Spain that are painting. And so how cool is that? Anyway, by the way, in March, I'm taking a group of people to cherry blossom season in Japan. My first trip. I wanted to paint there. I want to tour there. So we've put together this incredible trip, and it's sold out. So why am I talking about it? Well, we have put together a wait list because we've had other people who have expressed interest. We've been able to find another room or two. It's so hard to get them during cherry blossom season, but we're trying. And so if we can squeeze you in, we will. So just go to the wait list and go to pleinairjapan.com. Also, it's going to be a really busy, crazy fall because I got Fall Color Week, then I'm going to go off on a trip. I'm going to tell you about both of those here. Fall Color Week is my retreat that I do every fall, usually in a different place every fall. Because of the pandemic, we had to repeat a couple places because we couldn't go out and do what we call site selections. And so we had one lined up for one last time for the Adirondacks. And the Adirondacks, upstate New York, beautiful mountains and waterfalls, and color is spectacular. And it's sold out too. But we're going to do the same thing, a wait list. And the reason is because we think we might be able to get a few more rooms, maybe several more rooms. We managed to get a couple so far. So anyway, go ahead and sign up if you're interested for that. And then from there, I go to I drive back to Austin. I'm driving because we have dogs that the airlines don't want to deal with. And so we drive back to Austin, stay there a couple of days. I'm going to meet up with a couple of people who are going to be in the area for the Texas Plein Air event. And then going to get on an airplane and fly to Stockholm. Actually, I'm going to do a Stockholm and then a pre-trip to Mora. And then I'm going to be conducting my fine art trip throughout Stockholm. And then we're moving on to Madrid. We go behind the scenes at the museums and we have special privileges. We go to artist studios. We do a lot of things. It's not a painting trip. Sometimes I paint. I probably will bring gouache or something with me so I don't have to lug a whole bunch of stuff. And anyway, it's a blast. And we are not sold out for that, but we're close. I think we've got 7 seats left for that. And that's coming up. And by the way, you don't want to miss this. It's a luxury VIP thing, and you would really dig it. Coming up after the interview with Jennifer McChristian, I'm going to answer your art marketing questions. As I mentioned before, you can always send questions to me, eric@artmarketing.com, or you can send them to eric@pleinairmagazine.com. We don't care how you send them. And then, maybe sometimes we'll put you on live. You never know. We'll get your questions answered one way or the other. Okay. Today on the podcast, my guest is Jennifer McChristian. I just had the pleasure of spending a week with Jennifer and her husband, Ben. They were living in the world famous artist cabin in our property in Austin. And she was there shooting an art instruction course, which is got to be phenomenal. And she's born and raised in Montreal, Canada. And she knew she wanted to be an artist from an early age. She had several careers. She served in the United States Army Reserves and in the Canadian Army Reserves. She was a full-time animation artist and so on. But since 2000, she's devoted herself to painting full-time, which takes a lot of courage. And Jennifer has a lot of courage. She teaches plein air painting workshops around the world and has a lot of stuff. And she was the grand prize winner of the PleinAir Salon. She got her painting on the cover of PleinAir magazine. I happen to own, I don't own that painting. I own a copy she did of that painting for her video. She so generously gifted me. Please welcome Jennifer McChristian. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, I could spend time with you all the time. You're so much fun. What have you been doing lately since I saw you last when we shot the video?
Oh, well, I've just been busy doing paintings for some upcoming group shows, plein air painting mostly, and taking care of my figure drawing session that happens 3 times a week.
Wait. Tell me about that.
Oh, the figure drawing session?
Yeah.
Oh, my husband and I host a figure drawing session out of our studio 3 times a week. It's a 3-hour session and it's a live model. And we've been doing it since 2000. So yeah, I just really enjoy it. I love the camaraderie and just the relaxation of drawing. And yeah.
So you're not known as a figure or portrait artist. I mean, maybe you are. But certainly known as a landscape artist. You do a lot of architecture, things like that. What is the benefit to, I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it for the people who don't know the answer to, what is the benefit of doing a figure session with a live artist if you're only going to be a landscape painter?
Well, that's a very good question. There are many benefits to that. One being that you're constantly training your eye to see shape, form, value, regardless of what it is. But I find that the human figure is like the best way to practice, because you can take what you learn from drawing and then apply that to whatever subject matter you do, whether it's landscapes or life. So it's just a matter of like forming shapes and all that stuff, and being able to just train your eye to see proportions and things like that. And for me, the benefit I get from it is just not only do I get a lot of mileage, which helps me in my painting, but it's also a form of like meditation for me. It's very calming, and I get to meet a lot of artists. So it's also, I get a lot of social interaction, considering being an artist can be kind of isolating sometimes when you're in your studio by yourself. So being with a lot of people, it's just nice. And we've been doing it for so long, and yeah, I really enjoy it. And it's a really great thing that we're doing for our little community here.
So I found that when I I did a figure painting thing too. I had in my studio for 10 years in a row, every Wednesday night, had a group of people. And I found that it made me a better landscape artist overall, just because I was drawing, and I think that that's what the experts always say, is just always be drawing, always practice, always keep working on your hand-eye coordination. That is such a benefit. Now, you also are doing sculpting, I understand. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I just had this kind of urge to. I mean, I did sculpting when I went to Otis Parsons, and that was part of our foundation course when I studied, illustration and design way back when, and we had a sculpting class, and so I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed just having the physical, sense of working with my hands and forming a shape out of like a 3D form. So I was looking on Instagram, and I think something caught my eye. Maybe it was somebody's account who was a sculptor. And I thought, oh, maybe I should just get back into it. And I bought some little clay materials and stuff, water-based clay. And then I did look at some tutorials, some YouTube tutorials on how to sculpt like little simple things like a cat or a giraffe or a head. And it's a little bit trickier when you're doing it online, but I just had that to reference myself from. So I did a couple of little sculptures. You can kind of see them in the back over here. There. So that was, a lot of fun, and I haven't done it much, but I do go back to it when I feel like the well is run dry, and I feel like I need a little bit of inspiration. And again, to me, I find that sculpting is kind of has a similar effect as drawing, where you just kind of like get into it, and it's a meditative kind of like meditative. I can't think of the word. Just sculpting with your hands and making something out of just a lump of clay. So it's very satisfying, and like I said, it's also very therapeutic, and it's good for the hands too. Like
it's what?
It's good for the hands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because when we're painting, we tend to get a little bit like, if you're painting for many years, over time, you might develop some kind of arthritis in your fingers. So this helps to keep the circulation in the fingers and the wrist. So I think it's, many benefits to it.
Well, I think the whole idea of playing with other things does a couple of things. It informs your painting.
Mm-hmm.
When George Carlson said to me, he's a brilliant painter, but he spent his life as a sculptor. And he said, if you really want to learn to paint, you need to learn to sculpt, because sculpting will help you see things differently. It'll help you see shape and light and color. Right. Yeah, so I think that's good. And then you toy with some other things. You're primarily an oil painter, but you mentioned earlier before we went on that you were doing some gouache. So you do a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah, because you mentioned when you went on your trip that you bring your gouaches because it's less cumbersome materials to bring. The reason why that's one of the reasons why I like bringing gouaches when I travel is then I don't have to deal with the TSA issues of traveling with solvents. The only time I actually do travel with my oils is when I teach a workshop because that's my primary medium. But if I'm traveling just for myself, I started bringing my gouaches because it's just easier. Also, if I do a lot of gouaches during my vacation, they dry right away. So I can just take them back with me on the same day of my flight. It's just also, it's just a little bit more efficient as far as like equipment. There's less to carry. It's a little bit less toxic because you're working with water. So cleanup is easier. So I think it kind of releases a little bit of that stress level when traveling with oil paints. So I can just relax a bit. The process is a little bit different since I don't do gouaches that much, not as much as oils. And there's always that learning curve when I actually go and paint on plein air that I have to get through because it's quite an interesting medium and it doesn't really work like oils because it dries faster and some colors dry lighter than others. And so you kind of have to paint in a different way, almost like playing chess. It's very similar to watercolors, which I think is extremely I think it's one of the hardest mediums to work with because you really have to think ahead when you're using watercolors. So, what I like about gouache is I buy the little tube is that it's a similar kind of consistency to oil paint. I don't use the little blocks. I like to use the gouache in the tubes because then I can just squeeze them out the same way I do with my oils. And sometimes I'll even use like a little bit of, it's a thickener, just to give it a little bit more texture and like a thicker consistency. So I will use the gouaches similarly to the way I use my oil painting palette. And
So
of course,
what would the thickener be? Would that be something like a wax?
and no, it's not a wax. It's kind of like a I forget the name of it, but it looks like Vaseline, and
Yeah.
it's like and I just put a little bit on the side on my palette, and I use it mainly towards the end of the painting when I add a little bit more texture.
Right.
Typically, I leave my lightest lights for the later stages, so I'll use like the medium later on.
Okay, so that's a medium made for gouache.
Yes, I mean I don't know if you can use it for watercolors, but it's a Winsor Newton product. But I definitely use it for my gouaches.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
helps.
gouaches are really interesting, and I think like oil paints, you find a brand that becomes a preference, and oftentimes it's a preference by color. I know that for my gouache, some I buy some tubes from one company and some tubes from another, just because you find the shade that you like or the consistency that you like.
Right.
So you have done quite a bit of travel, and you mentioned that travel is really, really important to you. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, my first trip to Europe, I consider myself like a late bloomer. My husband and we took our first trip to Europe in 2011, I think it was to Paris. And it was completely mind-blowing and surreal because it was my first time being exposed to like a European environment. And of course, what a better place to start with Paris. So
You
it was
kind of grew up in a European-like environment in Montreal, though, right?
well, yeah. They call it the poor man's Paris. I hope that's not too. So, but there is a little section called Old Montreal that kind of is very similar to a Parisian, place. Maybe that's why I had an affinity for Paris. I don't know, but that was our first trip there, and ever since then, I was like hooked. I got like the traveling bug, and it just kind of snowballed after that. it was just really like seeing, because when you're in one place for so long, you kind of get accustomed and you kind of take for granted the things you see around you. But when you expose yourself to something completely new, different colors, textures, architecture, it's just like a spark plug in your brain, and it just kind of fires your engine up, and it creates a lot of inspiration within you. So for me, it was just really an incredible trip. And then after that, we started traveling to different locations, and been to, Rome was one of my favorite places. I love the history there. Lots of places. I taught a workshop in South Africa. I went to China, just lots of places.
Well, and I think I like your term spark plug, because I think that, we all do get kind of used to our surroundings, and,
Mhm.
you live in a beautiful area. There's a lot around there to paint, a lot of painters around where you live, and as do I. And sometimes you look at these same things over and over again, and you just don't even see them anymore. You go to another place, and it's like, wow, inspiration. And that's why I like to travel too. I think it's that idea of getting out, trying something new, being inspired. And of course, it's fun to travel. So it makes a lot of sense. So
Absolutely.
what is it about this plein air thing? You're also a studio painter, of course.
Yes.
You talked about being isolated in the studio, but why did plein air speak to you so much, and why have you become such an advocate?
Well, plein air, let's see, why did it speak to me so much? I can recall vividly the first time I went plein air painting. I don't remember the exact time, but I do remember the moment, and it was like, I remember like right after I graduated from college, I took on a couple of jobs and stuff, and then I wanted to get into painting full time. So I took a couple of classes, mainly like plein air classes with Robert Blue and Carl Dempel. And before going out to paint, I kind of bought a couple of books, Kevin McPherson's book. I really enjoyed his first plein air book, which kind of gave me a bit of understanding for plein air. And so then I was just really inspired, and I got my supplies and went out to paint. And I was so from then on, it was just, just the feeling of being outdoors. I love the outdoors. I've always loved the outdoors since I was a child. I grew up in Montreal, and we visited a lot of different Quebec countryside, and so I always loved the outdoors. So it's a plus to be able to paint while you're surrounded by nature, it's just something that you either love and you don't, and it's I don't know. It's I feel blessed to be able to do what I do. I think you had mentioned something earlier that a lot of the plein air movement is becoming quite popular, especially among the young people. And I also started seeing a lot of younger people coming into a drawing workshop. So that's a really encouraging thing to see. So
I am very encouraged by that too. You're still a young person compared to me.
Oh, I don't know.
It's all relative, but we started PleinAir magazine a little over 20 years ago, and there was hardly anybody doing it then, and it has just exploded. And the demographics are changing, and it's so wonderful to see. And I think that the Instagram, social media things have had a big role in that, because you're now able to see a lot of the different people who are out there, and it's very refreshing. And we also found at the PleinAir convention back in where did we do it? Denver. Just recently, we found that about 30% of the crowd was under 40. Which was really good news, because
That's
it used to lean a lot older than that, and that's wonderful to see that happening, and more and more. So that's a positive. So what is your best advice if somebody's listening to this and they're like trying to figure out, all right, how do I really master this? Do you have a process for learning a new skill that would help people either figure out how to start this or figure out how to get to the next level?
Well, I don't know if it's so much a process. It's more of like, if I want to learn something new, basically, I feel like, my life as a painter is very, regimented, and I follow a certain kind of process. And
tell me about that. I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought, but I'd like to know about regimented and process for you.
Well, seeing that I had military background, I'm very organized, and I have like an itinerary that I plan out every week. And so when I come out to the studio, I have a certain process, or I don't know if process is the right word to use, but I'll come in and I'll do some warm up sketching. I'll get my
routine. A routine.
A routine, yes. And then, I couldn't think of the word. And I do this routine all the time. So I think it's good to have habits and cultivate them. But once in a while, it's also good to shake them up. Because you can kind of get in a groove, and then that's when you start feeling unmotivated. And so for me, that's why I mentioned earlier the traveling, taking up a new hobby like sculpting, or even a new language. It doesn't necessarily have to be art related. Like for instance, I started figure skating, and I used to do that when I was in Canada, anyways, and I always loved it. I was like passionate about it, and although it's not anything related to art, I mean it is an art form. But it's just like a little diversion from painting, but I can just focus on just because I used to do ballet also, so I can focus on my technique on the ice, it's just nice to have something else on the side. It could be anything. It could be a sport. It could be a musical instrument. Even picking up a new book. I started reading again. I have a bunch of books at the studio, so I'll just pick up a book and start reading it when I'm taking a break from painting, just to get like the brain, firing in a different way. And when, so you're not constantly doing the same thing.
Great way to overcome any kind of feeling of being stuck, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you're trying to grow in a particular area, especially in your painting, are you still attending other people's workshops or watching art instruction courses? Are you doing any of that kind of thing?
Oh, once in a while, I'll get like little tidbits on YouTube and tutorials, and if I see a workshop that interests me, that I really want to go, then I probably will do it. But I'm always constantly learning, looking at other artists and visiting galleries and museums. And, like I said, also doing teaching workshops is really a wonderful way to get out of a rut, because it's when I'm teaching, I'm kind of revisiting stuff that I already know, but I kind of just haven't really focused on as much. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's almost like when you do a test and you're reviewing your information, the kind of like, just refreshes the knowledge that I already have about painting. And then also I'm able to see different styles of paintings from my students. And also I learn from them, because then if I see something that is incorrect, then I can kind of make an assessment and figure out what it is. So I can avoid doing that in my own painting, because I mean, I'm not perfect and I still make mistakes. So I'm learning from my students just as much as I'm learning from myself. So that's a good way to.
You mentioned going to museums. Have you ever gone to a museum to copy a painting, or have you ever done any master copies from photographs or posters or
I haven't
anything?
done any paintings, but a lot of sketching.
Mhm.
Most of the places I've traveled to, I always bring my sketchbook, because sometimes they don't allow for people to paint. So it's just easier to bring a sketchbook. So
Yep.
I've done a lot of that. Um,
What are some of your favorite paintings, favorite inspiration paintings?
well, there's one painting. I love the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
I love that museum. It's one of my favorites. And I remember there's one painting in particular, the Fountain Villa, uh, uh, the fountain. It's a
Yeah.
Villa Torlonia, and it Frascati, Italy. It's like a long title. But the first time I saw it in person, I was like just floored, because you see a lot of when you're studying in college, you see a lot of these images and books, and it's just not the same when you see it in real life.
That
And
was Sargent's sister. It was a painting of Sargent's sister painting by the fountain.
yeah, yes, and what for a couple of things. One of the things that intrigued me was like, what's the story behind there? I love the composition, and also it was encouraging to see like a woman engaged in like a supposedly like male dominated activity, planet painting, and I just like I've always been a huge fan of Sargent's work. Has been my inspiration forever, and just the use of color, the manipulation of edges, and I mean, even in the white fabric, you can see all the different colors. And what I like is that his brushstrokes are deliberate, but they still look very loose. And then you stand at a distance, it looks very realistic, but when you go up close, it's just like a cacophony of beautiful brushstrokes that are painted very loosely. Um, so yeah, and what's interesting about this particular painting is uh, that was around the time that he just strayed from. He didn't stray, but he kind of left took a break from portraiture and delved into a plein air painting. So that's kind
Mhm.
of like an inspiring little tidbit there. And yeah, I love that painting. It's one of my favorites.
What are some other paintings that really turn you on?
There was one. Well, I love Nikolai Fechin.
Ah,
Are you familiar with Nikolai Fechin?
oh yeah, yeah.
So this painting, Aya in a peasant blouse, um, is at the Taos Art Museum, and I was in New Mexico, in Grants, New Mexico, to teach a workshop. Actually, it was my very, very first plein air workshop, so that was kind of like a big milestone for me. And after the workshop, we took a little trip uh, to this museum. And again, Fetchin is another artist that I've always uh, been a fan of for years, and inspired for many, many years, and still am and always will be. And it's really a very neat museum. I mean, as you know, it's like it's this house for one, so that's even more special.
Yeah, the
And
Gresham House and Studio, it's fabulous.
oh yeah, and the fact that he was like a chameleon. He did so many things, like sculpted and all that stuff. And but this particular painting, it's so much life. I like that. You know, for one, that it's his daughter, so that's kind of cool. Um, and I've always been drawn to his ability to capture like the essence of the sitters. Like if you look at all his other portraits, it's like he captures their soul. It's really fascinating, and of course his technique is amazing. He's got like a beautiful a balance of like really abstract quality, and then you kind of hone in on the hands, and they're a little bit more representational, a little bit more detailed, including the face, but still loosely painted. So it's a really beautiful balance. So where your eye goes to the face, and then the hair kind of draws you down to the hands, and even the hair. Like instead of he didn't paint like little strands. He just kind of painted shapes and colors, you know, and just his palette is gorgeous. It's not too saturated. And of course, you're familiar with the Zorn palette, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, which and that's another thing that's fun too. I experimented with that too. So I did a bunch of paintings with the Zorn palette, which was really fun. But
I'm excited because I'm going to go to the Zorn House and Museum on my trip to Sweden coming up in the fall.
right.
And I've been talking to the director there. Even though the museum's closed, we're going to get in and get to see some of the artwork. And
Oh, that's amazing.
but to see Zorn's work in person is pretty phenomenal. As is Fession's. They've got
I
a
love Zorn.
wonderful at the Academy in St. Petersburg, Russia, where Fession went to school. They have his what would be the equivalent of his doctorate piece. It's a giant painting. I think it's called the Cabbages or the Cabbage Lady or something like that. It's phenomenal.
Okay.
And it's a giant piece. And I think he got this. I don't know if he got it from himself or if he got it from Mancini. Mancini did these, really tight faces, but everything else was just wild and loose. And
Yeah.
Fession does the same thing. It's very wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Did
what
you see
about contemporary artists? Is there anybody that I know you have a lot of friends and you're going to make somebody mad if you don't mention them?
I know, right?
Is there a particular painting that really speaks to you that we might know?
Well, you probably know I'm a huge fan of Tibor Nagy. You're familiar with Tibor, and the first time I saw his work, I was just like, "Oh my God, this guy can paint." I've just been following him ever since. I love all his works. I go through his website and it's just like love, like everything he does is like a masterpiece. But this particular painting, I for some reason is one of my favorites. I mean, I have a lot of favorites of his, but this one really encapsulates his style. I love the way he combines the realism and abstract. He's really good at that because it's a very abstracted piece, but yet you still know what it is. And I love cityscapes, so to me, that was appealing as well. And just the way his brushstrokes, so much energy and just kinetic movement, almost like he has like a sense of like urgency when he paints these, and it kind of gives the painting a feeling of like just energy, life, and just beautiful reflections, and also the fact that it was like a gray, overcast day at dusk, which is very difficult to capture, and he nailed it. So and the little accents of the orange headlights, just beautiful.
I can see his influence in your work, and I can see the influence of the other artists you mentioned in your work. One of the things that a lot of artists experience when they first start painting is they want to be tight and almost photorealistic. You have this incredible brushwork, abstract nature about your work. And sometimes you look at something, exactly what it is, but it's not defined at all. What do you say to people? How do you get out of this? First off, you don't have to get out of that. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but how do you move from being, tight and rendering things perfectly to being looser and having more fun and being more expressive?
Good question. Well, that comes again with mileage and just time and just pretty much mileage. I remember when I went to college and, we did do a lot of copies and stuff, but my work was extremely tight and realistic because you're kind of learning the technical aspects of painting. And then from then on, once you have the knowledge and the technique, then you the more you do it, then you kind of eventually evolve and your style slowly starts to develop and show. And then, again, with the traveling and all this stuff, and the more you grow as a person, you kind of know what you like, what you don't like. There's certain things I liked about painting certain painting styles that I like that I no longer like. So you just constantly grow and change. But for me, I've always wanted to kind of push myself and get to that level of like for instance, to Bornagi, like I just love that beautiful spontaneity that he has in his paintings. And I want to reach that level of like looseness. And I think it's just a matter also of like being fearless, because a lot of times people have that fear, like, oh, if I go out of my comfort zone and start painting like really loosely, it's people aren't gonna like it. It's gonna look weird, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's just a matter of like, first, you have to find a subject matter, something that you have an affinity for. You have to love what you're painting. That's a big plus, because then from there, that joy and expressiveness just comes out as you're painting. And again, the more you do it, then the more you will develop a style, the more confident you'll become with your brush strokes. So then you can incorporate that looseness in your painting. So yeah, I think it's just like mileage and keeping those creative fires burning and just yeah.
You, it's a little technical, but do you use any kind of a medium? I think I remember you saying that you start out with a wash of Gamsol or something, and then at some point, are you incorporating a medium? Are you thinning your paints to kind of get those wonderful edges? What's your process look like?
Well, I don't use much medium. I use Gamsol, but mainly for like cleaning my brushes between like different paint colors. And I do use a little bit of medium at the beginning stages of the painting, because I like to use the a fat over lean technique, which is like the first layers are going to be a little bit thinner consistency, and as you build up with lighter colors, the paint will get thicker. And it's also, using that method is easier to make adjustments. If you see a mistake, it's better to see it right at the beginning of your painting so that you can fix it, and it's easier to fix when the layers are thinner. And also, I tend to always start with my darks or my shadows first. And those I keep very kind of like not soupy thin, but like a thinner consistency than the lighter values. So I'll use not too much, but just a little bit of the Gamsol to get the consistency that I like, to put in the initial layers. And then as I build up my lighter values, the paint will get a little bit thicker in consistency.
Mm-hmm. And so you're not adding, you talked earlier about gouache, and you were adding something into it so you could get more buttery, thick brush stroke. Are you doing anything to your paint to get that buttery thickness in your strokes?
Well, for the gouache is because it's a little bit like thinner. The oils are a little bit thicker. So I use, I use that to make the gouache a little bit thicker. But the oil paints really don't need that, because the consistency is just right for me right out of the tube. I don't use any linseed oil or anything like that. Just basically Gamsol to thin the initial beginning layers at the beginning, and then of course to wash my brush.
Okay, cool. So you were not this last convention, but the one before that. You were the winner of the PleinAir Salon Grand Prize. You had a big surprise because you were not able to come to the convention. You were leaving the following morning, and we couldn't let you know that we knew anything about what was happening. We tried to get you to come to the convention, of course. And so your husband secretly, and I understand he's not one who can keep secrets, so he did a good job.
No.
He secretly allowed us to barge in with the big check and have you on video. And so what was that experience like? Oh
my God, that was so amazing. That was a huge, big surprise. Because like I said, later on, my husband Ben confessed that, like, oh my God, I had to keep this a secret this whole time. And he had to hide the check. And I'm thinking, I don't know how you did that, because he's just really not good at lying. But I guess I guess it was just, it was just like you kind of had to like think what was more important. You didn't want to ruin the whole surprise thing. So, but I was definitely surprised, pleasantly surprised, and I'm still reeling from it.
You're a relatively successful artist. You're making a living as an artist, and there's no logical reason for you to enter an art competition. What was your thinking?
I think for me, it kind of gives me like a goal, like a deadline. Let's say you have a show deadline or something, and then you're like, okay, well, I got to produce a painting for this particular show or exhibition or art event, blah, blah, blah. So an art contest is kind of like that. It gives me like a goal to work towards, like, oh, I'm going to do a painting for this contest. And yeah, I mean, it's just, why not? Yeah.
All right, terrific. So Jennifer, lightning round, just give us a couple of tips that we can use. If I'm a beginner painter, what are the 2 or 3 things I need to be focusing on before I do anything else?
Like before you do anything else, as far as like,
before what should I be focusing on? Drawing, values, color, shapes. What are the things I need to master first?
Oh, you mean like, are you talking about just like setting up to paint something right there, like a plein air, or just
let's say first time out plein air painting, or very early stage. What should I be thinking about? What should I be focusing on?
Oh, okay. Well, for starters, subject matter, finding a scene that you are intrigued with. That's kind of important. And then creating a composition out of your scene, because there's a lot to see around you. So you have
What's your process for creating a composition?
Well, I like to use my little viewfinder, and I kind of go around. If I see something that intrigues me, I'll kind of use my little viewfinder to try to crop a particular a section of my scene and see what works as far as a pleasing, balanced composition. And then from there, I'll do maybe a couple little sketches to see which composition works best. And of course, it's always important to do like a little black and white sketch. I know I bring up value a lot, and because it's very important, but doing like a little value sketch prior to your painting will help you to kind of be able to identify the values of the colors, and also be able to create a pleasing composition just by looking at your sketch. So you can use the little sketch, the black and white sketch, as a guide to do your color version.
What were the aha moments that led you to becoming a much better artist? It may have been somebody told you about something you hadn't considered before. It may have been just a tip, an idea. Is there anything that came to mind that kind of pushed you higher?
Well, actually, there have been a few moments. One in particular was when I took a class with Steve Houston, and he had us do little exercises in just 2 values. So you basically put in the shapes in for just the light and the dark, but in 2 values. So it's almost like a no-tan design. Right. So that was really like eye-opening for me, and it really helped me to understand and see value a little bit differently, and also, like I mentioned before, when I first started plein air painting, and I learned a couple of things from this Kevin McPherson book about value, and that really kind of turned things around for me, which is why I stress it so much in my workshops. And also there's the Richard Schmid book, his very first one, Alla Prima. I tried his color exercise, the little charts, and that was really interesting and eye-opening as well. And then there was a section that he talked about edges, and I never really considered edges in painting. And once I read that section and understood how to apply it to your painting, it really like made me see things differently. And so that was a big thing for me too. So there were just a few little instances that made me get that, like, oh, where can I take my painting to a different level with these things that I've learned.
But you're kind of like the queen of edges.
Oh, I love edges. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I just want to give you acknowledgement to the fantastic inspiration you're giving all of us with your paintings. I'm proud to be an owner of one of your paintings, thanks to you. And
oh, you're welcome.
And, it hangs proudly in my office where I can see it every day. And I just think you're doing a beautiful job. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. And it was great to chat with you again, and look forward to seeing you in May.
Oh, that's right. That's right. What's coming up in May? You want to tell everybody?
The PleinAir convention.
Yeah.
You managed to talk me into doing. I'm very grateful for that. I think I really owe it to you to help me get out of my shell, because I know you've been asking me to do it for many, many years. And it's not that I didn't want to do it. I'm just very camera shy and I have stage fright, but I kind of have to think beyond that. And like you said at the beginning, having the courage. So when I did the videotape, then that kind of made me a little bit more confident. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do it. So I'm actually kind of excited about it. And I'm finally glad I finally decided to do it. And I owe it all to you for kind of not giving up on me. And yeah.
Well, there's a whole lot more not giving up to come. And we're honored to have you at the convention. Surprisingly, I mean, there's, it's not till May, and we already have sold out of hotel rooms and trying to get more. The convention's almost sold out.
Nice.
And between you and the pre-convention workshops with Joe Paquette and Amit Kapoor, the watercolorist from India, it's going to be, and I think it's the first time we've gone east to the Mississippi. So it's going to be really a lot of fun. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we will see you in May, if not sooner.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Well, Jennifer was really inspiring. Thank you again, Jennifer McChristian, and you'll see her at the PleinAir convention. Okay, are you ready for some marketing questions and answers? Let's do it.
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhodes, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
Well, you can send your questions in, Eric at PleinAir Magazine or Eric at artmarketing.com, or just figure out a way to get to me. That's fine. I love doing it. We get a lot of questions, but it's fun because they're questions we wouldn't have thought of. They're really terrific. Okay, so the first question comes from Gail Caragnato of Inman, South Carolina. It says, if you have created a painting and it is donated to your local art group for a fundraiser, who owns the rights to the copy of the painting to make greeting cards or prints that might be sold? Well, Gail, that's a really great question. Let's talk about the pros and cons of donating paintings too. But first, copyright issues. I am not a copyright attorney. It's a really good idea to have somebody that you can rely on to give you valuable advice in case I'm wrong. But I think what I have understood is it depends entirely on how the painting is marked, right? Now, I can't give legal advice, and you should check with an expert in case I'm wrong, but I sign my name on the front, my signature, and on the back, I sign my name and I write my name, and I put Circle C, copyright 2023, my name, period. And then I write all rights reserved. All means everything, everything. All copies, all prints, all postcards, all everything, all rights reserved. That is a statement that says you own it. If you do not do that, my understanding is that person who owns that painting could potentially go duplicate it and sell it. So you want to make sure that's clear. Now, I have a little rubber stamp that I had made, and I have to update it every year, that says, copyright 2023, be Eric Rhodes, all rights reserved. And I think there's something else on it. I can't remember what's on it. I don't have it in front of me. But then I also put my website on it, which is also valuable. To contact the artist, go to www, whatever. And so this is a great opportunity to get your website on the back of it too. But I have friends who put a Circle C in front of their signature on the front of the painting. And some of them have said, if you don't do that, it really isn't valuably copyrighted. Now, there's a copyright process, but there is also, where you can actually, mail a copy of a print of a print of the image to yourself and so on. And that's more than most of us will do. But you want to have some kind of production anyway. Now, let's talk about donating paintings since we're on that topic a little bit. I get a lot of requests. I know you do too. And my rule is this: does it fit with my current marketing plan? Right? So like if let's say I live in the Adirondacks in the summer, but I'm only focusing on selling paintings in my hometown of Austin, or it's not my hometown, but where I live now, then I am not likely to do a giveaway of a painting in the Adirondacks because I don't care if I get known here, right? I don't care if people know who I am. But unless of course I just want to do it because I'm a nice guy, and that's a different story. You want to help somebody out, that's cool too. But if you're doing it as marketing, then you want to have some reason to do it. Now, I have something that I started doing years ago, and it's worked very effectively. Imagine this: I'm going to be in this art auction, and a mailer comes out for this art auction, and my painting is highlighted on the brochure that gets mailed. It's big. It says this painting worth, whatever $1,000 is going to be auctioned off, by Eric Rhodes. And so now I'm getting my name in their mailer. I'm getting my name on their website. I'm getting my name on their email promotions. And when I went to the event, they held the painting up and they stood up and they said, please, we'd like to introduce the artist, Eric Rhodes. And I stood up and I got some polite applause, and then I sat down. Then afterwards, people came up to me. I didn't know you were the artist, but now I put your face with the name, and so you get a dialogue going and you have a chance to possibly get commissions or other things. All of that stuff was intentional. I said to them, I'll donate a painting and I'll do it under these circumstances. So you can go, there's one thing I've done in the past is I've said, okay, I'll give you a little tiny painting, but if you do the following things, I'll give you a big painting. And because I'm looking for publicity, right? So I'll say, if you do an introduction to me, if you put my painting as a highlighted piece, the biggest image on your promotional materials and your website, your emails, and if you introduce me at the event, I'll do that. I'll give you a, more expensive, larger painting or something like that. And so that's been very effective. I don't do it very often because, quite frankly, I'm so busy doing this, I don't do much to market my own artwork. I'm in a couple of galleries, but they do that stuff, but I'm not doing it. So, but if you're doing it, figure out, does it fit what it is I'm trying to do? Now, the other thing I always ask for, I don't always get it, but I try, is I say, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a big one and a little one. Here's the deal. On the little one, usually you go to these auctions, they have a silent auction for some pieces. So I'll say, I'll give you a small frame painting if I can put a business card bowl out and some slips so people can put their name in it. And that way I get names. Now, the other thing I've done, and sometimes effectively, sometimes not, and that is I've said, I will also give you this bigger, more expensive painting if after the auction, you send out an email and you make sure that you mention and show my painting and me holding the painting with the winner of the auction. That's all I need, is because it's just another chance to get my name out there. And they'll usually do that. They usually won't give you their email list, but sometimes they will. And so I have had one instance anyway where I've been able to send out my own email and say, hey, you saw me at the so-and-so St. Jude charity auction, and I had these paintings, and I just wanted to make you aware of some of the other paintings I have. If you're ever interested, you can join my email list by clicking this, and so on. So, sometimes you can do things like that. Now, my understanding is that the laws have changed. Used to be you could only deduct the cost of materials, like the cost of paint and canvas. I think those laws changed finally, and you can deduct a true market value if you can prove that market value. But again, check with your experts, your bookkeeper, whomever. But I'm only interested in marketing. If I'm not focused on a local town, if I'm focused nationally, then I'd be more likely to put something in a national event than I would a local event, for instance. Okay. All right. The second question comes from David Gorski in Fairfield, Connecticut. I think this is a two-parter. For many years, I was an aviation artist. While trying to get better at landscapes for my aviation paintings, I basically stopped painting aircraft and started painting seascapes and landscapes. Recently, out of the blue, an aviation museum air show contacted me, asked me to bring my aviation art to the air show. So the first question is, should I bring aviation art to the show because it's what they're all about? Or should I also bring a smattering of my other paintings? I'm concerned about diluting the aviation brand, making it look less focused. I also understand that there might be wives and girlfriends there who might be interested in other subjects. Now, first off, you probably have to ask them that question. But I would, or maybe you just don't ask, and maybe you just, bring all your aviation paintings and put them up on a wall, and then have another wall that's devoted to other paintings that you've done. Because if somebody has fallen in love with your paintings, they might like something else that you've done. And you're right, there are other people there who might not be interested in airplanes. They might be there for some other reason. But they go, oh, I love that landscape or that farm or whatever. So I think any opportunity to get things in front of people is a good idea. So I like the idea of show your paintings as originals and also show other options. And I think in a case like that, I'm not a big prints guy, but I think in a case like that, you're selling originals, but you could also sell prints of all of your most popular originals. That way, somebody's not going to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 on an original. They might spend $50 on a print. Just saying. So, I mean, that happens very frequently at art shows, tent shows. So his follow-up question is, since the show is coming up soon, I need to make decisions on my website because I think, probably people are going to be visiting it, right? So do you think I should have them, the aviation paintings, and the other art together on the same website or under different categories? Right now, they are separate, and I'm just not sure if having two separate, desperate subjects on the site would look like I'm not focused. Again, thanks for your expertise and insight, blah, blah, blah. Well, aviation people, car people, they're interested in what they're interested in. And so I think I'd have a website. It's cheap and easy to do. I'd have a website. If you're really focusing on getting these people to come back and buy something, I'd have a website on your aviation art, and I'd have it filled with keywords. So if somebody searches pictures of airplanes, your website comes up, and have a way they can order and buy online. And then you might have a button that says visit my other art on that, and then that takes you to your normal website, which I assume would be davidgorski.com. And then you can have all of your other art there, and you can also have a button say visit my aviation art website. So you're not cluttering it up. The thing that I believe is that there is what I like to call a scent, and that is the scent of a painting or a style. So you want to make sure that if somebody sees an ad and they click through to your website, what they see in the ad is there, not what's something that isn't there. And you want to, if it's sold, put a sold sign on it, and then have a button that says other paintings like this, but follow the scent and do what people want. Anyway, I hope that helps. That's it for the Marketing Minute.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhodes. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.
Hey, you guys, thanks for listening today to the PleinAir Podcast. I hope this is helpful. We want to help people learn about plein air painting, we want you to tell them about it. If you share this podcast, that's always helpful. Always helpful when you leave comments, when you leave 5-star reviews. So any of those things help. A reminder that send me your art marketing questions, eric@artmarketing.com or eric@pleinairmagazine.com. And if you want to go to Japan with me in March, get on that wait list at pleinairjapan.com. If you want to come to Fall Color Week, get on that wait list at fallcolorweek.com. And if you want to go and grab one of those final seats for the fine art trip in October, Stockholm and Madrid, and Mora, where Zoran lives, where I'm going to take a little side trip, do that. And of course, if you're not a subscriber to Plein Air Magazine, let's change that, right? Go to pleinairmagazine.com. I have a blog I do on Sundays called Sunday Coffee, and thank you for all the positive comments and 5-star reviews on that too. You can find it at coffeewitheric.com. Comes out every Sunday. And in case you didn't know this, I'm on the air daily on Facebook and YouTube called Art School Live. Best place to find it is YouTube. Search Art School Live. There are hundreds of free art instruction demos. And one would say, well, why would I do that when I sell art instruction demos for a living? And the answer to that is, not everybody can afford professionally produced, high quality, super in-depth videos. So what we do on the Art School Live are people with their cell phones and you're doing a little demo. What we do with our professional things from PaintTube TV is really in-depth and high quality and extreme close-ups and HD quality and all that kind of stuff. So there's a big difference. But anyway, thank you all for being here. I'm Eric Rhodes, founder of Plein Air Magazine. Proudly. And thank you for your time today. I really am honored. Check out the other podcast if you haven't. There's many, many other episodes. As a matter of fact, this one is number 252. So there's a lot for you to catch up on. And we have on the Art School Live page on YouTube, we also post the webcast in video version so you can see the beautiful smiling faces of our guests. We've only been doing that for about a year. And also there's paintings and things shown that you can't see from audio. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We will see you. Bye-bye.
This has been the Plein Air Podcast with Plein Air Magazine's Eric Rhodes. You can help spread the word about plein air painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 plein air painting tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.